I've mentioned several times in earlier videos that the political situation inside Winterfell under the Boltons is far more complicated than it seems. And over the next few videos, I'll break it all down as part of a series on what many fans call the Great Northern Conspiracy. But to give you the headline, the Boltons are currently in control, supported by their Frey allies, while most of the other northern houses have been forced to bend the knee. Outside Winterfell, however, threats to Bolton rule are mounting. Stannis' army is camped in the nearby Crofters village, and some of House Umber, led by Moore's Crowfoot Umber, are hiding beyond the walls. Inside Winterfell's walls, though, representatives of many powerful northern houses have gathered, along with soldiers whose true loyalties may be less than certain. Many likely still hold allegiance to the Starks. So how can Stark loyalists identify one another without exposing themselves? And how could they possibly communicate with their allies beyond the walls? It's a fascinating and tense situation, one we witness through the eyes of Theon Greyjoy. Now, Theon might not seem the most reliable of narrators after everything he's been through, but during this period he is surprisingly observant, drifting around Winterfell like a ghost. We mustn't forget, Theon knows Winterfell better than nearly anyone else alive. He grew up here. He understands its halls, its courtyards, and the complex politics of the Northern Lords. So even as he tries to avoid entangling himself in their schemes, he notices much. The movements of Mance Rayder's spearwives, the suspicious deaths we've discussed in earlier videos, and, of course, the mysterious snowmen being built in Winterfell. As always, Theon sees, observes, says nothing, and quietly moves on. But what exactly does he see, and why is it suspicious? After all, it's snowing heavily and no one can leave the castle. So why not pass the time by building snowmen? This is what the text tells us. A battle was being fought in the yard, Ricewell's boys pelting each other with snowballs. Above, Theon saw squires building snowmen along the battlements. They were arming them with spears and shields, putting iron half-helms on their heads, a rank of snowy sentinels. At first glance, there's nothing alarming about that. But think about it more carefully. These snowmen are being built on the inner curtain wall, an extremely high wall over 100 feet tall. In freezing conditions on a narrow battlement, why would anyone go all the way up there to play when there's plenty of snow down in the yard? Theon himself notes how strange it is that anyone would climb those dangerous icy steps unless they had to. The stairs are described as treacherous or hardly ideal for fun and games, so perhaps the squires had a reason to build those snowmen up there, where they would be clearly visible from outside the castle. Martin even reminds us through Theon that the inner wall stands much higher than the outer one, high enough for someone atop it to see beyond Winterfell's perimeter. And not only their placement, but their arrangement seems deliberate. The snowmen stand in a line, each positioned so they can be seen individually, from inside or outside the castle. They face outward like watchful sentinels, armed and armored with real weapons and shields. So these squires must have carried that heavy gear, spears, shields, and helmets, and up those icy steps multiple times. And remember, squires are responsible for maintaining their knight's armor. In a castle preparing for battle against Stannis' forces, they are expected to keep those arms clean and ready, not strap them onto lumps of snow to rust away. This already tells us that there's something more going on here. George R.R. Martin has always emphasized the symbolism of heraldry. Shields and sigils often reveal loyalty and identity. Shields were being given to these snowmen. So what if this was a coded signal? A way to communicate army sizes and allegiances to those outside Winterfell's walls, using an agreed-upon system. Perhaps each snowman represented 100 troops, spears for infantry, helmets for knights, shields displaying house sigils, giving exact details of who was loyal to whom, and who outside the walls would need that information. Moore's Umber and his men, of course. And how would they respond? Through horns and drums, and loud enough to keep the castle awake at night, convincing many that Stannis' army was near. You might ask, could the Northern Lords really have coordinated something this elaborate? It's not impossible. Moore's Umber is outside. His brother, Hother Umber, is inside. In their brother the Greatjohn's absence, they jointly ruled Last Hearth as co-castellans. They may have officially declared for opposite sides. Moore's for Stannis, Hother for Roose Bolton, but no one truly believes they are divided. It's entirely plausible they found a way to stay in contact, and those aren't the only snowmen we hear about. Later, Theon observes, more snowmen had risen in the yard by the time Theon returned. To command the snowy sentinels on the walls, the squires had raised a dozen snowy lords. One, he notes, is unmistakably Lord Manderly, the fattest snowman Theon had ever seen. Another one-armed must be Harwood Stout. The snow lady could only be Lady Barbary Dustin. And the one with the icicle beard, clearly old Horsebane Umber. Again, it's the squires making them, not servants or children. That in itself might mean something. Squires are close to knights, trusted and loyal. And these figures represent a very interesting group. All potential Stark loyalists. Wyman Manderly, and absolutely. Hother Umber, almost certainly. Harwood Stout, likely as well. Theon saw him whispering with Hother Umber, and he despises Ramsay Bolton, whose men plundered his lands and killed his dogs. Lady Barbary Dustin, a complicated character, but one who loathes both the Freys, for the Red Wedding, and the Boltons, for Domeric's death, her nephew. So yes, she belongs in that group too. It's not confirmed that these 12 Snow Lords are the Stark Loyalists, but those we're sure of appear among them, while those we know aren't loyal, like the Boltons and Freys, are notably absent. Theon notes that these lords seem to be commanding the snow soldiers on the walls, meaning the shields on those sentinels now bear their sigils. A clear message to anyone watching from outside: here are your allies, and here's how many stand ready inside Winterfell. We also know that Mors Umber was watching the walls. When Theon and Jane Poole leap from them, it's Mors who swiftly captures them and takes them to Stannis, and he had been waiting eagerly for the Frey forces to march out. Why? Because he had dug traps in the snow for them, pits that swallowed horses and men alike. Yet he left no such traps near the East Gate, where the Manderly forces exited, meaning someone inside Winterfell had told him where his allies would emerge. So how did the Boltons not notice any of this? Roose Bolton, sharp as he is, spent most of this time indoors, wisely keeping warm. The snowmen on the battlements faced outward, so a casual glance wouldn't reveal any sigils. And besides, the snowmen didn't last long, only long enough for their purpose to be fulfilled. Later, Theon observes that the snowmen had become monstrous, 10 feet tall and grotesquely deformed. And here's where Martin's wordplay shines again. The sigil of House Umber is a giant, and now, their coded snowmen have turned into giants. And if you want one more layer of wordplay, the Stark Loyalists plan to unite with Stannis, who intends to make Jon Snow Lord of Winterfell. Robb Stark too had named Jon as his heir. So these Snowsmen, or Snowmen, might quite literally be Jon Snow's men. The deeper point is this: there clearly has been secret communication between the rebels inside Winterfell and their allies outside. Theon sees the signs but refuses to involve himself. Mors Umber and his men have been watching, and it's only one of many clues that something much bigger, a great northern conspiracy, is taking shape. If this isn't proof of cryptic snowmen being used as coded signals, then it must be something equally intriguing, because one thing is certain: there's far more happening in Winterfell than meets the eye. Northern uprising is stirring, and we'll explore the rest of it in the next videos of this series. If you'd like to see more A Song of Ice and Fire deep dives like this, there's a link to my playlist on the left of your screen. And if you'd like to support this channel, thank you. There's a link to my Patreon on the right. Thanks for watching. That's all for this time, and I'll see you again soon.